there, welcome to Sequentially Yours, Initially Mine. This is a show where we look at this week's number ones and tell you which ones will have you flying high and which ones you should bury very, very quickly. Alright, so let's jump right into things with what we have this week. Start with Victory City. Alright, so this is a new one from IDW, which I'm liking IDW's work in general. This is not one of the ones that I like. It seems to be about a good cop on a corrupt police force and how he's struggling to deal with this even though his partner is corrupt. There's also a murderer in here that's crazy, and I like the coloring. The coloring on it is interesting because if you look, the coloring changes significantly depending on what location, especially background colors, what location you're in. However, the art itself is a mess. I know that, here we go. Story by Keith Carmack, art by Vincent Nappi. Vincent, I know that this is your style, and I know that you're trying to go for something specific here, but I'm having trouble following it. And that's never a good thing when you want somebody reading your book. So, yeah. Victory City, avoid it. Next. Electric Memory, Man Plus. This is from Titan Comics. Titan is starting to make a bit of a name for itself as a comic company. I like what's going on with them in general. They're the people who have been putting out the Assassin's Creed comics, and they've got a couple of other licenses. Hold on, it was... Heroes is there, Blacklist is theirs. They've got a decent amount of licenses, and they're trying to do what, IDW and Dynamite has been doing, which is using their licenses to build up enough of a fan base in order to keep their original stuff going, like Electric Memory Man Plus. But you also need to have things that make sense. This was okay at best. It's a little on the nose, would be the best way to put it. It's the future. It's cyberpunk dystopia is our genre. We are in Olisipo City, which is in Portugal. Basically, the megacorps run everything, and when they decide that there is a resource or something in a place and they want to build someplace, then a city grows up around it. Again, our main characters are police officers. I will say that one thing I like about it is that the dialogue feels natural for, if not actual police officers, because I can't speak to actual police detectives, but I can speak to police procedurals, which is, I think, what most of us are familiar with, and it feels like it fits into that genre fairly well. The art is not bad. The story doesn't make a lot of sense, and I was having a little bit of trouble caring, I suppose. When you are making a number one issue, there is a really fine balancing act that you need to walk, and bear with me on this. You need to tell the reader exactly what they need and nothing that they don't. This can be a problem when you want to give them everything, or you want to maintain a sense of mystery and you hold back too much. This book does the second. I will give them credit again for creating these characters that at least seem believable if there's nothing particularly compelling about them. But, look, excuse me. But the problem becomes that there was not enough in the plots to make it sensical. There were too many questions. So, it's not bad, but it is not Titan's best, and I would probably avoid it if you don't have an extra $4 to spare. Alright, this one, guys. This one. Cyberines. This is from Red Anvil Publishing. This is so 90s. I broke out a Nirvana album by instinct when I was reading this. I couldn't help myself. This is so 90s. I checked to see if TRL was on. This is so 90s. I decided to see if my True Lies video was new. Alright, Cyberines. Is there anything cyber about them? They're cyborgs. One of them is. Is there anything marine about them? Two of them were Marines, sort of. And I'm not sure if you could tell from the cover, but a significant portion of these people are suffering from Youngblood's disease. There's a foundation for that, you know. Wow. Yeah, this is exactly what you would expect. Literally, the first word in it, take a guess. I'll give you a second. In fact, here. Guess what the first word was. If you said explosions, you would be correct. Explosions. For some reason, it always starts with explosions. It's like no one knows how to shoot a gun anymore. It's all about RPGs and IEDs. This could not have been... The thing is that if this is satire on the Dark Age of comics, it reads as sincere, and I will give it credit, all the credit in the world for its sincerity. Man, it suffers from everything that was wrong during that period. Silly puns, and not even good puns, but silly puns. Unintentional tough guy names, really kind of silly tough guy names like Citizen and Sniper and Rook, and here's Top Kick. Yes, I know that's a reference to 4chan can't, but yeah, Top Kick. Top Kick has a partner, actually. It's Zion. Man, it's hard to tell a lot of these characters apart just because the artwork doesn't distinguish them much. I'm not sure what happened at part of this. Literally, one of the main team is fighting this other guy. They're supposed to protect somebody at a press conference, but then they find out that the other guy was there to make sure the press conference happened and was attacking anyway. A bit of reverse psychology there. Did you see how... I didn't see how... No. Guys, Cyberines. No. Okay, we're starting to get into the ones that I really actually enjoyed. These are in no particular order, but I did enjoy the rest of them. So, Cry Havoc. Alright, at first, I was not so sure about this because, well, let's put it this way. You never go wrong quoting Shakespeare, and that often means that you go wrong. Let's be honest, a lot of people quote Shakespeare or reference Shakespeare in order to give the impression of depth, without actually having to give depth, but no. Simon Spurrier and Ryan Kelly on this one. Spurrier's the writer, Kelly, pictures. I like that. A lot was put into this. This book really did... First of all, there are 3 different colorists to it, because it takes place in... basically, the story is told in 3 different time periods, and you put the story together. You know how that type of story goes. But each time period has its own distinct colorist to give it its own distinct feel. That's a clever idea. More to the point, each one of the pages, or more to the, not each one of the pages, but each one of the sections has their own page layout theme. They are basically laid out in a similar fashion to other ones in that section, but not in that, but distinct from the other time periods. It's really quite clever. Speaking of quite clever, the author goes through in the back and has a couple of annotations pages, where he just talks about some of the mythology that he drew on for this, and the research that he did, and the little details that you might not have noticed on the first read through, but give this so much more depth and interest. I loved this. At first I was okay with it, but I gave it a second read, and then I wanted to give it a third read after that. And the more I read it, the more I liked it. I'm going to put this on my pull list, actually. Next time I go into the comic shop, I'm going to tell them to add this to my subscription, because this is really clever. And I wish Mr. Spurrier and Mr. Kelly the best in their endeavors in this, and they got a reader out of me. I am really happy with this. So yeah, Cry Havoc. Excellent selection from Image Comics. Alright, but that is not the top one this week. Okay, Strayer #1. I did like this. I didn't like it as much as I liked Cry Havoc, or as much as I liked the other two that are back there. But this is still pretty good. It's post-apocalyptic plus fantasy, so it can draw from the tropes of both. The character is a bit of a... I don't want to say wish fulfillment, because I don't know what Justin Jordan wants in his life. But he's a little bit overpowered for how they present him. That being said, he has one of the more interesting weapon choices. And I can't really describe it, just read the book and you'll see it's these sort of things. They look like gloves, but they, I guess, shape shift into blades of various kinds. It's really kind of cool. I like it. The art itself is okay, if apparently eyes are not a thing that this artist does much. You get enough of an idea of this world so that it becomes interesting and you can immediately get a sense of what the stakes are, but there is enough mystery left behind. And again, that's that line that I was talking about. And I think the trick to it, or at least the trick that Strayer uses, because there are multiple ways you can go about this, is that Strayer tells us one story in this one book that gives us an idea of one aspect of the world, but then introduces another story that we can move into. One of the things I also like is that another person who I believe is the main character, she is desperately trying to find somebody to help her save the world, and nobody wants to, because that is a lot of work and it doesn't sound like it pays very well. So, yeah. Suffice it to say, though, yeah, Strayer himself is an interesting character. I wish that he didn't do things that made him so competent while also making him seem so incompetent. Tonally, it just doesn't work. It doesn't mesh. So, one or the other. Alright. But, yeah. This is Aftershock Comics, and yeah, if you got a couple of bucks spare, would not be a bad... Oh, also, I almost forgot, Tamara Bonvillain, who I have talked about on this show before, one of my favorite colorists. She does Wayward, she does a lot of other stuff. She's the colorist on this, and the colors are great. The colors are absolutely great. Highly recommended. Moving on! Ghostbusters International #1. Alright, so you're going to see, because of the way that they do Ghostbusters, you're going to see a lot of this, because I do #1s, and basically, instead of doing a long-running series, the Ghostbusters comic series runs in a set of miniseries, one after another, 4 to 8 issues. Their big one, Mass Hysteria, I believe was 8, or it could have been 12 issues. I could be wrong, but I think that's the biggest one that they did. Ghostbusters International, though, is good. It's just as good as the other Ghostbusters comics. I like revisiting these characters. I like that, what's his name? Hold on. Eric Burnham. I knew his last name was Burnham because, long story. Anyway, I like that Eric Burnham knows who these people are and is able to tell a good story with them. I like that the continuity is there and these characters have changed and grown. I like seeing reasonable things happen with the Ghostbusters. One of the things, for example, just as an example, Winston has had probably some of the most changes of all of the Ghostbusters over the course of these comics. One of them being that in his spare time when he's not on duty as a Ghostbuster, when he's not on the clock, he's taking classes. He's going to law school basically. So he has become the guy who looks over their contracts. He has become the guy who understands their liability. He has become the guy who steps forward when Venkman's fast talking is not getting them through. It's kind of nice to see, and it gives Winston something to do. In the way that people have complained for a long time that Winston he's very tokenized in the films. So it's good to see him have something to do in this. That being said, we also get to see more of these other characters that doesn't take away from their inherent funniness. They're still the people that we know and love, but we get to know a little bit more about them. Similar to the way that the real Ghostbusters gave us a little bit more about them, showed Venkman as the son of a con man who has to struggle with this. Showed Ray as a guy who came from a small town who really does want the adulation of the people there. That's what happened in the cartoon. In this, we still get that kind of stuff, but that doesn't take away from who they are and from these characters that a lot of us grew up with and a lot of us love. Ghostbusters International is a great start to what's going to probably be a very fun mini-series, and I'm looking forward to issue 2 on this. But every week, there must be one. And this week, our number one is Faith, number 1. Okay, so as some of you know, I'm working on one more video here, and then the video after that I'm going to do a deep look into Valiant Comics the same way I did Image Comics. I promised somebody that I would, and I have not forgotten about that. I've just been busy. As per usual, if you guys would like me to spend more time on the show and less time pursuing my freelance work that pays the bills, my Patreon is there. Please, even a couple of bucks a month is something that I might not have to do. So, and it adds up. Suffice it to say, though, yes, Faith, number 1. Faith is a spin-off character from Harbinger, specifically the Harbinger Renegades most recently. Harbinger is, for lack of a better term, Valiant's X-Men. It was a group of people with inborn powers, usually young people, that were brought together to form this team and to teach them. And Faith was one of them. At one point in the Harbinger storyline, the guy who brought them together turned out to be secretly taking over the world. Like nobody noticed this was happening. It was kind of interesting, actually. So they created the spin-off, a splinter group, the Harbinger Renegades, to fight him. And that all came to a head, and now Faith has decided to leave her team, break up with her boyfriend, and start doing some solo work in LA. Faith herself as a character was a breakout character in Harbinger, and this kind of reiterates why. As a number 1, you don't need to know anything that I just said. It'll give you that information here. What you do need to know is that there's a reason why she was the one who got her own book, and that's because she is the most like the viewership, or the readership. Faith is, at her core, a fangirl. She is fun. She is confident. She likes what she likes. She doesn't like what she doesn't like, but she loves to get into discussions about it. She is very much like you and me, and always has been, and that's what kind of makes her so relatable in this. A lot of the things that she does because that's sort of the superhero thing. A lot of this issue is her fantasies. One of my favorites being where she rescues a shirtless Chris Evans from a fire because he was tied up in a chair, and you have to rescue him, of course. It's kind of cute. It points out the fact that she wanted to be a journalist because that's the sort of traditional superhero cover, but journalism is kind of on the decline, so much so she writes listicles, which I think was kind of an amusing way of doing it. But suffice to say, though, this comic balances the action and the comedy really well. It presents our main character and the cast of supporting characters quickly and easily, and does so in a way that doesn't feel like exposition most of the time. Taking this character out of... It doesn't ignore the character's past, but it also doesn't dwell on it. It gives us enough to seem believable. Her thinking back on things that had happened. Her seeing her ex-boyfriend, Torque, who now has his own reality show, seeing him on TV, and us getting her reaction to seeing this and knowing that this is out there. Faith herself is sort of relentlessly upbeat, but when she gets angry, she gets really angry, and it is wonderful. Everything about her is kind of great. She's really pushing her superhero name, even though people know who she is, sort of. She has a secret identity in this, but it's not Faith. I can't remember her last name, starts with an H. It's not that, which everybody knows. It's a different name and a different identity that one of the old Harbinger Renegade guys set up for her. And suffice it to say, though, yeah, the artwork is not only interesting, but it's a little bit different, but it's also classically comic booky. And I like that. I like that Faith has these really great facial expressions that tell you so much about what's going on in her head just from a single panel look. There's sort of a twinkle to her eye that I absolutely adore. There's just so much going on in this book, and it has so much potential. I really do hope that it stays around for a while. This is part of... Valiant is coming out with a series of new books. This is, I think, the second one. I can't remember what the first one was. But they're trying to diversify their line, and more to the point, they're trying to come up with some new ideas and inject some new thoughts into the Valiant universe. Valiant has always been a bit of a struggle. They are a great comic company. I've loved them since the 90s, where Image was a bunch of artists got together and it was all very art focused. Valiant was always more writer focused, and as a writer, that always appealed more to me. And it still is very, very writer focused. After their comeback and all of this, they have been working to build and build and build. It is good to see that Faith is one of the cornerstones on which they want to continue to grow their company. I think that they have a great product with this. And if you like a superhero story that is also fun, but doesn't skimp on the action, doesn't skimp on the drama, Faith is going to be great for you. I highly recommend it. And that is my number one for the week. Alright, guys. So, I don't know what your opinions are going to be, but these ones were initially mine. Take care.